For a storm, the damage is not always obvious. And if it's not documented correctly, it can cost you. With a decade of experience, we know exactly what to look for. We handle the inspection, claim support, and the roof. Storm season is coming. Make sure you have absolute restoration on your side.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather.
Welcome in on this beautiful Saturday to Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Loppon. It really has been a spectacular day. Hopefully you found a way to enjoy warm, relatively calm, dry, and I think all those things are going to change over the next couple of days, in some cases in very, very big ways. The first way is, of course, the calm part. It's going to be windy on your Sunday, and that's even before storms really form. But we do think that there's a possibility to see a brief, strong tornado potentially out of our setup for a line of thunderstorms moving through North Mississippi during your Sunday evening. Really 24 hours from right now, highly likely we're going to be doing some continuous coverage of some damaging thunderstorms. Damaging winds. We have a level 3 confidence on this here. I could have potentially argued up the level 4 because, again, of those winds prior to storms moving through, the vulnerability we have after the ice storm, and then the greatest potential to see some of those damaging wind gusts as well. The hail threat has increased somewhat over the last 24 hours, and just the brief nature of the heaviest portion of this is the only reason why that heavy rainfall threat isn't greater. But, of course, the risk for severe weather is a fairly large, widespread one, and we're pretty close to the center of this. I point this out to say, when we look at this graphic, this shows us the number of reports. So level 3, that's a fairly high concentration of reports on a scale that only goes to 5. This is a large enough area that I think the people at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, the ones that officially put out this outlook, leaving room in there to potentially have a higher risk level if confidence reaches a high enough level. And we'll talk about that more here in just a moment. Timing for us is going to be late evening tomorrow. So we really from basically now, maybe 5 o'clock there for locations near the Mississippi River, all the way through, say, 10, 11 o'clock to maybe midnight or so. After that point, it's all east out into Alabama, and this storm system definitely keeps up some strength with it into Monday, but it will be out of here with much colder temperatures coming in behind it by then. So more fuel has led to this upgraded level 3 out of 5 severe weather risk that we do have for today, and the wind in particular has been upgraded to a level 4 risk. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to take an exclusive look at your Storm Finder, triple threat, all of the different components to time out where these storms are most likely to be the strongest, and then much, much cooler as we look toward next week. We're tracking the very latest on that again coming up here in a couple of minutes, but it's not impossible to maybe see a couple of flakes out of this storm system, fleeting flakes, maybe the better way to describe it. So over the first 12, if you haven't, for whatever reason, taken advantage of this evening, do it, because you'll see we're still around 70 at 7, 60 by 10, so light jacket weather. But it's kind of legitimate, a little warm out there this afternoon. So by tomorrow morning, much more mild than we were this morning, with temperatures starting in the mid-50s and a lot of moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. Just-in-time moisture trying to be the activation point for some of those showers and thunderstorms. In fact, on the wide shot here, that's a big part of our story. Our frontal system, the one that's going to quickly plow through our area, back there out toward Colorado and Wyoming at this point, that is going to sweep in and right along the front. I'm telling you, within maybe 10 to 15 miles of that front is where everything heavy is going to be for tomorrow. And that will be the initiation point, wherever that front is, to produce the stronger storms when it arrives. But it is going to plow into questionable moisture. What do I mean by that? Well, the measure of moisture based on the same scale of temperature is something we call the dew point. When this number is, say, down here in the purple, a lot of fuel out there. That will not be our case in this scenario. What we have is we have that moisture heading northward, and it's going to be just-in-time moisture, meaning that the most impressive moisture gets up here just in time as the system is arriving. And a lot of times, when we have to have it or when we expect it at just the last moment, sometimes there isn't as much as we expect. And then that hopefully sometimes limits the intensity of whatever it is that happens. So that just-in-time moisture, one of our wild cards, that hopefully plays in our favor. So again, as we look here at Futurecast over the first 12 hours here, you'll notice into early evening, only a few clouds out there, no precipitation. We're keeping it dry, but those clouds, well, a few showers out in Alabama, but continue to flow out of the Gulf of Mexico here. Widespread cloud cover that is a sign of that moisture. A few showers closer to Hattiesburg, down toward the coast as we head toward early Sunday morning. But again, mostly dry conditions, as it will be this front as it moves through. It'll really light up with storms back out in Arkansas, and that line will move from west to east through our area very quickly as we go toward tomorrow evening, bringing with it damaging winds and, yes, the potential for some isolated tornadoes and maybe even a large hail. We'll break down those individual threats in a minute, but as we go over the next 24 hours, obviously things really ratchet up late tomorrow. Now let's talk about something here for a moment. On this graphic, a few things I want to point out. 55 in the morning, so fairly mild, but a lot of moisture arriving. You'll notice the stickiness factor. But look at these winds. 14 miles per hour, we show a sustained wind speed at 9 a.m. That means gusts, you can usually say 5 to 10 miles per hour over whatever this number is how fast those wind gusts are. We're likely talking about 30 mile per hour wind gusts at noon and into the afternoon tomorrow. The real storms don't arrive until probably 5, 6, 7 p.m. tomorrow, working from west to east through the area. But ahead of that, we're still going to have 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts. And so because of the vulnerability we have related to the ice storm, I've said this a million times, you're going to hear it the rest of the year out of me, but it's going to be easier to knock down some of those limbs even before storms arrive. So keep that in mind. It will be a windy day. The coverage of storms also, see how that remains fairly limited? It's kind of one really good chunk or bad chunk right at the leading edge of that line moving through where our peak severe weather chances come. Now, right after this break, we're going to look at instability, CAPE, fuel for thunderstorms. That is one of our main limiting factors, where it is maximized, what that does to thunderstorms. We're breaking down the rotation chances and, again, timing everything out that you need to know to get through this chance for storms over the next 24 hours as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room Droom Weather Center right after this.
I have been going to Tupelo Smiles my whole life. When I was a kid, I was unhappy about some uneven coloring on my teeth after getting my braces off, which at the time there really wasn't a fix. I was recently made aware of a solution that would totally fix it, which is exactly what we did. They not only heard my concerns, but they never stopped looking to solve my problem, and that's why I love Tupelo Smiles.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
People tell me how lucky my daughter is to have been adopted. But really, we're the lucky ones. Learn more at adoptuskids.org.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Thank you so much again for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather. You know, on paper or on a graphic, it doesn't look that bad. And God willing, it won't be, but we're going to start off around 56, heading towards 70 degrees by noontime, 77 by 3 p.m. As we've talked about last couple days here in the Room to Room Weather Center, this is really a concentrated severe weather chance right at the leading edge of this line of storms. And that means it's not widespread, not for everybody all at the same time. That's why I showed 20% on that coverage of storms at 7 p.m. Our peak potential for many of us is probably 7 to 8 o'clock for your Sunday evening. And it's, again, going to be strong gusty winds, potential for those to be damaging, as well as some hail, and yes, even isolated tornadoes. A lot of that comes down to the amount of fuel available for thunderstorms to work off of here. And so when we look at that fuel, a couple of cameras around here kind of shining a light on this. First off, Clarksdale, that dew point at 57. A lot of times we talk about tornadoes, we mention we look for that number to be, say, 67, up close to 70. I don't know that it's going to be there. So why we talk about tornadoes? Because there are very, very strong winds aloft that are going to mix down to the surface, and that will then enhance our shear, the way the direction of the winds works, and then that will help to get these storms to rotate, even if they have somewhat less fuel. But that measure of moisture there coming at 57 in Clarksdale, one of the highest we have in North Mississippi, because, for example, go to Rolling Fork, a little drier at that location, 49, though almost an identical look at the clear skies there in the Rolling Fork area out in the Delta. And as we look toward Tupelo, for example, that number is only 46. So a more limited amount of moisture, part of the reason that severe weather chance is just ever so slightly lower for Tupelo, yet we expect that we're going to be maintaining storms, not developing them here. If they're not severe and haven't been severe by the time they make it to Tupelo, it's highly unlikely they'll become severe. Again, appreciate Mitchell Cunningham and Bowling for sponsoring that Tupelo Tower Cam there. So here is futurecast fuel, and we have precipitation kind of aligned on this at the exact same time here. Notice how the fuel not very limited, but we have some here in North Mississippi. We also have some spots, if you look close, I have the map kind of showing through right there. The darker is not where we have much fuel. That's where it's more limited. So we look for the brighter colors on here. Sometimes we'll call this CAPE. Sometimes we'll call it instability. I like to call it fuel. We have the rain chances layered on top. And again, we'll time this out more here in a moment. But as you look toward 5 p.m., see how there's just this stripe of brighter yellow right along where that line is? It's just the right amount of fuel at just the right location. That's 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, right at that line. It's possible there's just enough moisture just in time. So kind of a look at this here. It's a very, very sharp line of strong winds moving in from the north and west, where we're going to have some of these isolated storms fairly heavy there. We show one Greenwood moving toward Grenada, another one there from Chula moving toward Kosciuszko, yet another one toward Tupelo. And if you look at just how wobbly this line of fuel is there, I know we've got a couple of things layered on top, but that tells us that there's going to be some areas kind of bowing ahead. That's where that damaging wind threat comes from, 60, 70 mile per hour winds. That's also where we can get the rotation on this. And if we can get any storms ahead of this main line to merge in, that will then enhance that potential to get some rotating and possibly tornado-producing thunderstorms. And we're going to dig specifically at triple threat and that storm rotation coming up here in a few minutes as well. But as those storms work their way eastward, everything left behind here, 11 p.m., only spots we're still watching there, southeastern Noxubee and Pickens County. But any rumbles you hear after that, there's no severe weather risk related to that. We are not talking about tornadoes or anything with what comes after that as well. And yeah, that is a little wintry stuff that it does show for pre-dawn Monday morning. Wouldn't be shocked to have a couple of flakes. Also wouldn't be shocked if you didn't see those. Not going to be really meaningful there. So severe weather risk. We're all included in a level 3 out of 5 severe weather risk for really pretty much the entire region here. Wider shot, as we mentioned a moment ago there, this leaves kind of a very large middle here in case confidence increases enough to add a higher risk confidence level. As we bring things in a little closer, the tornado risk, there is a slightly better chance, again, out here, you could argue Oxford, Water Valley, and Grenada, a time of day helping because it's just a little bit earlier in the overnight period, and that, again, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, as opposed to 9, 10, 11 o'clock farther east. So hopefully that limits the number of tornado reports out of this, which is what this graphic shows. But this one's a little different. This shows the potential intensity, kind of peak intensity on what we could see. As you'll notice, everybody in this up to EF2 strength. EF2 is an important number because once we see a tornado hit that level, we refer to that as strong. And so strong tornadoes, we will start doing at least a little bit of damage to well-built structures. We have that potential, again, where if we see a tornado, that we could have one that becomes strong. Now notice a greater number of reports of wind damage possible. And this, I think, two things going into this. There's a lot of strong winds aloft. They're going to mix the surface, and then that will enhance the winds. And we're also here in a scenario where if we do get some rotation on these, that you could, in the way it's trying to surge and produce a tornado, still kick out some strong wind gusts, 65, 70 miles per hour, and maybe not produce a tornado. And either way, you get tornado-like damage out of not officially tornado-producing thunderstorms. So that's one of those things we're trying to balance on this, on top of the fact it's just going to be really windy before storms ever move in here. And this, again, fairly a large risk north to south on that. Destructive wind potential, it is possible we could see wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour. A 58 mile per hour wind gust is where it becomes severe. 75 is now where we're going to start to cause some damage to to buildings are built a little bit better. Certainly a situation where you're definitely going to be rocking a manufactured home if it's hitting directly from the west, the wrong direction. So tomorrow is one of those nights where now we need to be planning, hey, in the evening, do we want to get together at someone else's house just in case? Because it's one of those nights where we're just going to be a little bit more vulnerable. Large hail risk. Everybody involved, at least a limited risk there on our True Shield roofing, large hail potential there. And I do think we have that potential for some significant hailstones for at least part of the area. And this has to do with everything kind of merging into the line. This pink indicating where we could have hailstones in excess of 1.5 inches in size, kind of at the beginning of the development of these. So Futurecast for tonight. Now this is going to be a boring graphic and we'll zip through it pretty quickly, but nothing. We're just in kind of prepping. We're watching a little of that more unstable air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. We have the clouds. They have showers out there toward the plains, but no precipitation or anything like that of significance coming from any of that there. So looking at lows for Sunday morning, we're at 55 in Tupelo and Amory, yet 58 Belzona and Greenville. Moisture moves northward more quickly in the Delta, and that's what helps to kind of power and fuel these thunderstorms for tomorrow. And that's why storms will develop there and then largely move eastward. Highs on your Sunday should be 66. We're going to be lower 80s and upper 70s. So it's going to be a warm day on Sunday. And if you are not sensitive to the winds, which will be gusty and strong all day long, it's going to be another beautiful spring day. But just remember, if you're going through a walk in the woods or whatever you're doing, that trees damaged from this ice storm, there's plenty of them out there. We've got to be looking up and teaching the kids to look up to make sure there's not one of those branches up there that the strong winds tomorrow will knock down. Even before storms ever move into our area. So here is Futurecast. Prepping things still at 9 a.m. with a few isolated showers there, was kind of dragging some moisture into this strong and quick moving storm system. Here's the front, and most of the storms of significance are going to be right along the leading edge of this front as it moves in. Notice we see, and again, my frontal position here might not be perfect, but you see this thin line of storms developing very, very near that front. And those will continue to track right along the front. You also notice they have little kind of arcing sort of shapes to them on our HRRR model here, an indication that some of these storms, again, will have some damaging wind potential with them as well. I'm going to take this out of play mode here for a second. I'm going to zip down to the next graphic, and I want to pull the front out of this. So give me a moment to pull the front, what we call surface analysis, out of this, because I want to make sure that we can do this justice on timing and really kind of walk around and through what we're looking at here. So I'm going to click save on that and put this back into play mode for a moment. And let's talk timing as this moves through. So again, this will be a few storms there that could develop just ahead of our line, and then a line of thunderstorms stretching from Jackson, Tennessee back toward Greenville. These might not be the most impressive storms that you're ever going to see on our Futurecast. There have been times you've seen back at the TV station, and I think even here, storms that look a little stronger. The thing to note is what makes these different and makes this a tricky forecast. Again, high potential impact with maybe slightly lower confidence is the fact that we have very strong winds aloft and a pretty sharp change in wind directions aloft, what we call directional shear. And those things will help some of these storms to rotate and help push down some of those winds from aloft along this line. So we show that one near Water Valley is an example of one where I think we have some decent rotation. That might just be an enhancement of 70-mile-per-hour winds. That's enough to cause some significant damage. But that also could be rotation kind of kicking around there as that tries to track up toward Tupelo and Boonville. There could be a storm trying to produce a tornado. And also watch these back toward Greenwood as well there. As we go hour to hour ahead, you'll notice here by around 10 p.m., the ones we were looking at back toward Chula, they're closer to Starkville, and some of these thunderstorms there that tracked from around Water Valley back to Tupelo and Russellville with some more of that rotation as well. And then moving eastward into Alabama by, say, 11 to midnight. Yeah, there might be a rumble with this behind. But tomorrow, once that first main line moves through, the tornado threat that we're talking about here is done. It'll still be windy behind this, but the tornado threat and the large hail potential is going to be with that initial line as that progresses through. And this is, kind of ridiculous for a moment here, but yes, there could be a little bit of wintry precipitation on the very backside of this before temperatures get much, much colder looking toward next week. In fact, As we start off with low temperatures on Monday, they're going to be down below freezing or in the mid 30s, and wind chills will be in the 20s. It will be very, very chilly. I'm going to get the triple threat here in a moment, but as you'll note here, not much in the way of any sort of wintry precipitation of substance, but a rogue flake not impossible early Monday. I know kids coming back from school, maybe even late Monday, a rogue flake, but there's not much moisture to work with here as this storm system exits and works away from us. It'll take any of that moisture away for quite a few days as we dry things out through the extended forecast. So highs on Monday, not so high, expecting those to be somewhere in the neighborhood of the mid 40s to maybe low 40s. I wouldn't be shocked to have a few spots that don't make it out of the upper 30s for highs on Monday. So again, temperatures way below normal for this time of the year. 7-day forecast has us, again, about 50% on that peak coverage of showers and thunderstorms late tomorrow evening. We're 44 for Monday. We're 24 for the low on Tuesday morning, looking at 48 for the high Tuesday afternoon. But we're at least frosty potentially early Monday. We are a hard freeze causing some major issues to plants for early Tuesday morning. We're 32 as we look toward Wednesday, and then temperatures milder as we look toward Thursday and Friday. Very, very limited rain chances through the extended forecast, because this front is just going to really shove all the moisture right on out of here. And a reminder, you can always get the latest forecast in the Mississippi Live Weather app. Coming up right after commercial break, we're going to look at triple threat. We're going to look at the rotation tracks. We're going to do a few different models on that. We're going to answer some of your questions live here on Mississippi Live Weather, coming up here in 60 seconds from the Room to Room Weather Center. We hope you'll stick with us.
It's Friday night y estamos activos. Head out early. Drinks flowing to level.
No sé qué pasó. I didn't even drink that much.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any pets?
Yes, we have a dog, but she's little.
Do you have any unlocked guns around the house?
We do have a gun, but it's stored securely, locked in a safe that the kids can't access. Appreciate you asking.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, let's talk triple threat, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live. It allows us to analyze the damaging wind potential. At the same time, we can look at large hail and rotation. It utilizes our exclusive strike model. Again, this is triple threat, something you'll see exclusively here on Mississippi Live. One thing that's very, very obvious before anything else shows up, watch out here toward Kansas and Oklahoma. See that just big batch of blue moving in from the north and west? That is that really, obviously chilly air, but that is the wind with this storm system that's going to press in and try to bring the damage. And that's the reason that's one of our highest thresholds. Now, you'll notice here, we still have at least limited wind damage potential out of this here, even through noontime Sunday, before storms have ever made their way in. We call that pressure gradient force, or pressure gradient winds, just caused by the pressure moving into the center of this low pressure system. And then that enhances the wind speed as well. So before storms ever get here, some damaging wind potential still there. As you can see back out there toward Oklahoma, some really, really strong winds behind this as well. But then storms, they start forming back out into Arkansas, eastern Arkansas, and the Mississippi Delta, where they do start to strengthen a bit. I'm going to probably take this out of play mode because I think this is going to go probably a little too quickly through this. So give me just a second here to make an adjustment on this so that it just sticks right to basically the 24 hours that we need this. And so here we are. Okay, so this is Sunday, say 5:30, so about this time tomorrow. We've had a few little bits of hail come out of this, 6 to 7 o'clock. As you'll see here, there's a little more hail on this than what we were thinking last night. The reason for that, if you look at the individual storms it's depicting, we do have a few thunderstorms that are going up just ahead of this main line. Considering how limited the fuel looked yesterday and how much better it looks today, that's where some of this hail threat comes in, because the upper level winds are definitely strong enough for this to be a significant chance for damaging winds and maybe even a couple of strong tornadoes. But the fuel remains somewhat limited, but with it slightly greater today, that's where that's making a hail threat increase just a little bit more out of some of these thunderstorms and the rotation threat as well. One thing I see right here instantly, again, we have some of those stronger wind gusts back out toward Marks and Charleston there, but we also have some of those rotation tracks. The rotation is going to be overlaid at the same place where we see, I think, the greatest potential to have some of the large hail as well. I'm going to boot the hail down below the rotation for a moment so you can see that as well. As we say 8, 9, 10 o'clock, this particular projection, our strike model says by, say, 9:30, these storms are going to be out there closer to Aberdeen and Hamilton. In the wake of these, we've had some of these rotation tracks that do look pretty decent on here, strong enough to produce some large hail and strong enough to produce perhaps brief tornadoes. We're unlikely to probably see long-lived tornadoes out of this. I shouldn't say unlikely, but we're more likely to see brief tornadoes. And then those storms are out of here, as you can see, by midnight, before midnight, a lot of spots. So let's look at these different threats individually. We'll bring the wind threat here to the top for a moment. We do have some spots where we have some of those brighter blues there, where again, some wind gusts, easily 60, 65, maybe even 70 miles per hour possible out of this line. We also have, looking at, again, the rotation, quite a few of those rotation tracks out there where we're going to have rotating thunderstorms. And I think that rotation is going to enhance some of the wind speeds just a little bit as well from time to time. So that's those two things are kind of linked. And then obviously the hail threat with this tends to be secondary in our concerns, but some of these do show some pretty decent hail with some of the heaviest of these storms, especially this one that goes from Aberdeen there back toward Ewan, Alabama. So that's one of them that we're going to watch again for the larger hail potential. This look here at our storm, our triple threat. I think one of the main things that I notice out of this is just that there's a lot more hail on this versus what we had 24 hours ago, sort of looking at this. We will get to some of your questions. Our meteorologist, Caleb Edelblut, behind the scenes with those, and we will address these coming up here in a couple minutes. I'm going to look at a different projection here. This is going to be our HRRR model, which is one that we look at obviously quite often. It's the one that is kind of the primary projection that I would follow in this sort of situation. Quick look there. Yes, we have rotation, and it's largely one and done. So let's walk now hour by hour through that projection as well. And so as we go into Sunday, again, morning, midday, afternoon, nothing. So your Sunday, if you want to do whatever you want to do outside, you should be in pretty good shape. But then you see that thin line out here toward Little Rock, 4:30, 5 o'clock for some of those locations. As that line moves eastward, one of the things I think has caught my attention very closely today is the fact, notice how we have some thunderstorms there ahead of the main line. And then notice that those happen to be the ones as they merge that have more of that rotation with them. So if we get a storm to merge with this primary line, we're more likely to get tornadoes to form. And I think that's a possibility out of this. So now as we walk this eastward there, let's go back here. This would be 7 o'clock. Our line of storms, much healthier at that point from Olive Branch back towards Shelby and Eudora. Rotation in some of the strongest sections. These will probably prompt tornado warnings and could potentially have some wind gusts 70 miles per hour or greater. As these storms move eastward, again, there will be a few at least short-lived spin-up style sort of tornadoes out of this in the Delta. So before I go any further, I need to mention this, and I should have probably mentioned this a little bit ago earlier as well. We need to make sure that you guys have ways to find out if you're in the danger zone. And our weather call is probably the simplest way to do that. I'm not going to leave this up long. We'll come back. We'll talk more about this in a minute as we answer some questions. But you need to make sure that you know if you're in danger. Weather call is what I have for my family. What I recommend for yours, it's a phone alert system that will call your device if you're under a tornado warning, if a tornado is confirmed to come out of that system, or if there's excessively large hail because the National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning, or strong damaging winds, or excessive flash flooding, what we call flash flood emergency. You can sign up with more information there. Again, we have that below my picture there on the screen as well. Again, we'll get to your questions here in just a moment. But as we head past 8:30 towards, say, 9 o'clock tomorrow evening, those storms now out here, Kosciuszko, we show toward Tupelo. If you look closely at some of these, while this doesn't have the same kind of rotation track, what this does show is it does show kind of that arc sort of shape on some of these. When you get that sort of shape, those are ones that have more strong winds pushing out, and it's at the edges of those that you can get the brief tornadoes to form. So I don't know that we're still talking. I think we could still definitely be talking about a strong tornadoes threat, I should say, there at 9 p.m. By around 10 to 10:30, we show those storms closer to say Oktibbeha County and Starkville, West Point, Aberdeen, you don't see rotation tracks that are as long at that point in time, but there still is some rotation and still damaging wind potential out of that. And as we head toward around 11:30, the storm's largely weakening as these storms move out of here. But this is a large threat. As you can see, up to the north, up in the central Tennessee, Kentucky, the Ohio River, there will continue to be wind damage potential with this system, even for some of those locations there as it moves away. So your headlines here are like this. Again, our threat confidence, and we can make an argument. I'm going to bring Caleb in on a double box here for a moment to talk about this for a second. Caleb, I'm going to put the severe risks behind you. And again, we will look at everyone's questions here in a moment. Do we need to be higher on the damaging wind risk on this?
I think that argument could be made, especially with this system and everything that the SPC keeps putting out. I think our highest risk is wind. So kind of elevating that above everything else, in my opinion, makes the most sense to me, especially with the direction that these kind of updates have gone throughout the day, Matt.
So, and it's not just what they're saying. I mean, I think based on what we just looked at off of models, I'm going to have to kind of change this one more time. We'll get that back up there. There we are. It's just, you get the storms ahead of the primary line. And so you're going to have strong winds along the line. Any kind of cell merger there is going to then have little spin up areas, and you're going to get these RFD surges. And it's just, you know, that's going to enhance the wind. So while I don't know that we get all the way to tornadoes for many of these cases, I think we're still going to have some strong winds. So yeah, let's go up the level 4 threat on that as well there. Okay, so you have been monitoring the kind of chat behind the scenes here as well. What are some of the questions coming in? And I'm gonna probably have to pop it on the mine, I think, to see it. Actually, we could pop to yours, and I'll pop my microphone behind you, and then we'll just kind of we'll figure out where we go. So give me a second
sounds
here.
Good. Yeah, if you can still hear me, there's been a lot of questions about shelters, especially with how windy this event's going to be. So I wanted to point out just a few of them. You still here? Can you hear
yes,
me?
I am. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can hear you. You're coming in on my end. Wanted to mention, so you mentioned earlier talking about damage to well-built structures. People were asking, well, does that apply to those FEMA-approved above-ground shelters, especially locally? People were just kind of asking, kind of getting their safe place prepped and where to go when the time arises tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, so yes, I would definitely say above ground. Listen, I have an above ground shelter for my family, and you know, at my location here, I wouldn't think twice about getting in that for an EF5 tornado. Like, I'm going to go there. It should hold up. I anticipate it'll hold up, but going through any tornado is going to be a very unpleasant experience, right? That's liveweather.com. I'm going to try to pull up the list here a second. But it's going to be a very, very, very unpleasant experience. So yes, those above ground shelters, you should absolutely take advantage of those. Those will work wonders for you. And I'm glad you point that out here I'm going to bring it back over here for just a second. And we do have a new partner here in Mississippi Live Weather. And that's the folks at Lee's Storm Shelters, again, made down near the Egypt area in Monroe County, but they are partnering with us, sponsoring our storm shelter page on Mississippi Live Weather here, and advertising with us here. So if for one reason or another you don't want to go to a public shelter, or at least a year from now, or however long it takes them to get, it won't take that long. But this won't help you tomorrow. But in the long term, we're thankful that they have become a partner with us here on Mississippi Live Weather, the folks at Lee's Storm Shelters there. But we do have a list of public shelters. And again, all of these above ground shelters are going to be good enough. So yeah, I think that they are good places to go. And I think that people should take advantage of those, Caleb. So yeah, again, we have the list here. This is not necessarily a comprehensive list, and I'd always recommend maybe calling City Hall just to double check to make sure that they're going to be open. But usually when we have an elevated risk like what we have for tomorrow, a lot of these will end up being open. But it never hurts to kind of, for your tornado drill, for lack of a better way to put it, after church tomorrow, just stop by to make sure that everything is in order, that the location is where you thought it would be. But if you go to our website, msliveweather.com/shelters, or right there in the app, there's a place on the menu on the left, or if you scroll down, where you can see storm shelters. And again, I appreciate the good folks at Lee's Precast there for partnering with us on that. Let's bring Caleb back in again here. Some other questions that people have asked.
Well, I know you just mentioned church a second ago. Some people were asking how this affects those Sunday evening church plans and kind of what you recommend for the people as they go about their evening.
I think for a whole slew of reasons, we're probably not. Well, okay. So we're not to July yet, so I don't think the bill has taken effect. But I think if this were a year from now, churches will be, and houses of worship and certain nonprofits will qualify for lack of a better way to put it, immunity. That's not the right term. If they open up their facilities to be shelters, assuming that the facility is a safe place, and so that's a law that we talked with. Oh gosh, why is my brain not working here? Chad McMahon about during the off season for the legislature, and he worked with some folks down there to get that passed as a law. So next year, those houses of worship and churches, assuming that that you make an assessment that it is a safe enough location, the basements in those would be absolved of I guess immunes might be the better word. But so there is that. But as far as planning for tomorrow night, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, longest explanation ever on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you hit that earlier saying tomorrow's still going to be a beautiful day. Enjoy the spring-like day. It's just kind of around dinner time and on where you kind of just want to be hunkered down, stay indoors for the rest of the night. Going to be a little bit gusty and we'll be tracking everything out, but still going to be a beautiful day tomorrow that we want you guys to enjoy. But also another question.
What other questions? Yeah, go for it.
Yes. Another question that we had for you, Matt. Someone was asking about kind of to explain the confidence in the number of reports that you were talking about as far as those SPC outlooks and those level 3 out of 5s, 4 out of 5s, and especially for all the different categories and what that means, especially for the tornado one. Like, does that mean certain EF ratings or kind of what does that mean?
So, yeah, that's a really good question. And in the weather community, this has been one of the hot topics. There's been some adjustment to the way some of this has been done over the last 12 months. And in particular, we start looking at this severe risk area. This is the same. 1 to 5, that is it on that. But when we start looking at any of these graphics, these are always about the number of reports, right? So in the bullseye area here, you should have the greatest number of tornado reports. That's not to say you can't have one outside of that, right? Anywhere in this green and within that, there's a chance for a tornado. We just expect you're most likely to have them within this center circle, and so then most likely to have the greatest number of reports. This is where the intensity comes in. So, okay, a tornado that's EF0, EF1 is damaging and can definitely hurt you, especially if you start talking a stronger EF1 tornado. That'll cause some significant damage to a structure that's not well built, a manufactured home that's not just anchored, really any manufactured home that's not on a full-on regular foundation. You're going to have some major issues with that. You start talking EF2 and greater, now we're starting to inflict damage on well-built structures. My house will have some roof damage probably on an EF2 tornado and have maybe significant roof damage and start losing walls potentially maybe on an EF3 or certainly when we get to an EF4 tornado. So we start talking about EF2, that's when we're starting to inflict damage on well-built structures. That's when we need to be thinking about where we're going to shelter and not just at home. If we're talking about, certainly structures that aren't as well built. So while, again, going back to the previous graphic here, we have this bullseye where we're most likely, again, we'll see the greatest number of reports in the center of this bullseye. This graphic shows where will we be the strongest, and it could be strong even outside the middle of the bullseye. So you might not have as great a number of storms rotating, trying to produce tornadoes out here, say Fayette or Macon or Columbus, but you're just as likely to, if a tornado forms, especially forms west and tries to hold a while, that it could potentially become a stronger tornado, not an intense tornado. We're not talking about anything EF3, EF4 or greater, but I think you could have just enough with this to maybe briefly get one that's up to EF2 in strength. So that is kind of that difference there, Caleb, on the confidence in something happens is, I guess another way to put that there, but just the number of reports versus necessarily how impactful those reports are.
Yeah. No, that was explained perfectly. And there, I only had one other question for you. We keep talking about how windy it's going to be tomorrow, especially with wind being our highest threat on our threat traffic. So people were kind of asking, what can we expect for that wind once that line moves on through? We keep talking about how it's a quick line that'll move on through. That's where the brunt of it is. But what can we expect after, especially for those that get hit earlier, especially for those out there in DeSoto County?
Okay, let's walk through that there. This will take me a minute. If you're willing to be patient with me for a second to kind of hack together a graphic, I'll put one together for you. Let me type in SWATH. Yeah, we can do this. This is not going to be the right color scheme that I like. This will be good enough. So this graphic here shows, and this is our strike model, so we can do this. So this shows kind of the strongest general wind speed you'll see over the course of time as this system moves in. So where you see yellows here, these are wind gusts 30 miles per hour or so. And fairly widespread 30 plus mile per hour winds, even by noon tomorrow when there hasn't been anything outside, maybe a shower, and even then that'd be pushing it. But out here, you mentioned DeSoto County, you mentioned the Delta. I mean, you can almost exactly see the Delta drawn on here, right? Like this is the Delta. There's not as many trees, not as many hills, less friction. And so I'm not telling you anything you haven't known your entire life there. It's windier than it is for locations farther to the east. And the wind speed's probably peaking in excess of 30 miles per hour, even by noontime tomorrow. Let's slide it over this direction here for a moment. So as we go forward beyond that, as you can see, going 2 to 3 to 4 o'clock, I'm going to stop it right here before any storms have occurred. So before any storms have occurred, we've already had wind gusts up closer to maybe 40, maybe even 45 miles per hour. And you can also kind of see the Blackland Prairie section of the viewing area as well out here east. Again, those locations flatter, a little bit less in the way of trees. And as a result, the wind speeds will be greater there where you see the oranges in excess of 30 to 40 miles per hour. And there'll be pockets where that's also the case east as well. But as we show through the entire event, you'll notice in some cases, those very strongest winds are as that line of storms moves through itself. Now, note something here for a second. The reason it looks like a bunch of lines is because our projection doesn't show every single second of the line moving through. So this is, when the line is here and then the model does all the math and everything and then advances it and the line's there. And it does all the math and advances it and then the line is there. So that's why it looks all piecemeal. This just, in real life, would be a full everything colored in, probably at these sort of red colors there as well, with some pockets where we show out there toward Pontotoc County. We show one also in Lowndes County, another one out there toward Water Valley, where we're talking about, even on this model, which will tend to underdo wind speed some, that we're talking 60 plus mile per hour winds there in a few locations. So even the model can see the fact we're going to see 60 plus, and it does have one spot over there into Alabama. I think that could be up in excess of 70 miles per hour on our scale there as well. So that is kind of the accumulated wind potential. Let's look at future STS. Let me see here on gusts, and we do HRRR gusts. So this is a different model, and this will be just the peak wind gusts. And so this one would be helpful, I think, for kind of timing as well. This actually has the numbers on it. So you get an idea for this afternoon. This might not go all the way out. This is short term. That's okay. This will get us through. So this evening, again, continue to be fairly breezy overnight. And then tomorrow, 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, as you can see here, 9:30, you're going to have some strong southerly winds. So high-profile vehicles need to be paying attention. Again, this is before a single drop of thunderstorm rainfall has moved in. It's not to say we can have a sprinkle or two, but there's no thunderstorms at this point. And still fairly widespread wind speeds up 40 plus miles per hour. I'm going to have to find, there's a version of this that goes a little farther out. Let me find that here. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that typically we would, 1848, 18 hours, hold on. Do I not have 18Z? Okay, we're gonna have to break this and make it. So give me a second to change this to something else. So I need 18Z, enter. 18Z, enter. And 18Z, enter. Okay. And that may or not, that might not change my numbers in front, but you'll get the idea. So let's go 40. Let's just go with the whole 48 out. Okay. So the numbers advance here. Let's see if they stop advancing by noontime. Nope, they don't. They keep going. Okay. There we are. Okay. So in the afternoon, again, before any storms have occurred, we have fairly widespread 35 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts. I mean, at calmest, we're 25 miles per hour. Then that line moves in, and you can see how the line itself, look right here on this. And then again, this is our HRRR model. We looked at the strike a moment ago there. This does a great job of seeing all these kind of, I don't know, this is a brown sort of color. These are where those wind gusts are estimated in excess of 60 miles per hour in that line by, say, 7 p.m. tomorrow. So that's an example of the power that the line itself will have as it moves in. We'll see if we get an hourly reading where it catches one of the reporting stations. It did not. But again, you can see right all along that line there, lots of pockets where it is wind speeds in excess of 60 miles per hour there as of, say, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Again, some spots where I think we start to see it get very north and south there, like this one near Tupelo. We talked about you earlier, one of those spots where there maybe is enough wind that it's trying to wrap around and produce a tornado. That's one that, just even look at the wind there, looks very suspicious, more likely to be one that could produce a tornado 24 hours out. So hopefully that's not how that plays out. But then you can see those the wind and everything with this, obviously strong winds translating east after that. So this is what they were asking. After this moves through, how windy will it be? 30, 40 mile per hour winds, even 1, 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, still 30 plus mile per hour winds, even in the first part of early Monday morning there with 20, 25 mile per hour winds. This should get me through midday Monday, still 20, 25 mile per hour winds then. So that's the long answer there, Caleb. But the long answer is this. It's going to stay 30, 40 mile per hour winds even after the line moves through. It will be before the line moves through. And then 60 to 70 mile per hour winds when it's over top of us. That combination is just a lot of opportunity to knock down trees, knock down branches, and all those sorts of things. That's why, again, wind is the highest kind of severe weather risk that we have out of this. Give me a moment to kind of plot that back in here. I have the hail risk there, but our wind risk has the greatest opportunity, greatest number of reports of wind damage are going to be likely, and some of those could be 70 mile per hour winds or greater.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you were just talking about too, as far as wind and knocking trees and branches, some people were talking about power outages. So as far as if we can expect them, I think with an event like this and with that ice storm we experienced earlier this year, that there is good potential for some power outages to occur. But of course, we're going to continue tracking that out. So make sure you have everything charged up. You make sure you have different ways to get your alerts, because that way you'll have several opportunities to stay updated with us as that line continues to move on through North Mississippi tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. We're going to have power outages, no question. Because, I mean, just, again, from very vulnerable branches, you know, things are still dangling, hit a power line. It's easy to arc, you know, there's all kinds. It's a sensitive system that we've just gotten put back together. And not all the trees have been cleared the way they need to. And that will happen. It's just we're not there yet.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think I spotted one more question. They were asking I was curious if they meant for their respective location or all throughout North Mississippi, but especially with how windy this is going to be. They were asking kind of how or what to expect. How fast can this line move through either their respective city and how long it lasts, but just through North Mississippi tomorrow evening. Because, I mean, to be honest, spoiler, it's a pretty quick moving line, Matt. I think people were kind of wondering how long this event could last tomorrow night.
So for whoever it is, like, you're going to be under the gun maybe 20 minutes. I mean, it'll be windy before and windy after. So if this is moving, about 100 and, let's see here real quick. So we show about 160 miles or so from really about 6 p.m. to probably 9 p.m. How long it'll take to move west to east across, so about 3 hours. So that's about 50 miles per hour or more, I'd say, is probably fat. So somewhere between 50 to 60 mile per hour is the forward movement on it. I mean, I think the individual storms themselves, which will probably be moving a little bit more southwest and northeast, the individual movement could be as high as maybe 65 miles per hour or so.
Yeah.
So really moving quickly. But I think the overall line, if you're just tracking just the line, somewhere around 50 to 60 miles per hour, probably on the forward speed there. Again, it picks up a big head of steam, and that certainly makes it fairly, that enhances the wind as well.
Of course. Yeah, no, and I think, for the most part, I think everybody's kind of having good spirits as I continue monitoring the chat. They're just hoping for the best, trying to pray away those tornadoes from North Mississippi, trying to keep it maybe just wind related, because we all know we can handle some wind here in North Mississippi, and tornadoes a little bit more of a fear factor for us here in North Mississippi. But so far, spirits look high in the chat. I'm even kind of reading it to the side. Ooh, fill your gas cans. That's also smart as well. I think that ice storm that occurred in January kind of left us a little bit more prepared for some more severe weather here in North Mississippi. So a lot of people just kind of praying that it's not as intense as what it could be forecasted to be, but definitely still expecting and hoping for the best tomorrow evening.
I saw somebody asking about power outages on Monday morning, and that's just one of those things, if you have significant outages that we'll deal with at the time. It was just every pole, every line. That's exaggerating a little bit, but not at the same time. We're down during the ice storm. So when we say power outages and we say that we're going to have widespread chances for damaging wind, I understand how those things can immediately overlay in someone's brain and say, we're going to be out for days. Number one, hopefully that's not the case. But, that's just such an extreme event that we're coming off of there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Let's see here. I'll look one more time here, and then I think we'll kind of wrap things up as we're just kind of checking through the chat. Appreciate y'all for your support on Weather Call. So, Laura, that's a good question there. So, why the whole county is under a tornado warning? It says 1 mile away, but it's 20 plus miles away. So what's the delay on an event occurring in a call? So let's talk about that for a second here. So Weather Call only calls you if you're in the tornado warning box. So let's kind of clear off here. Let's play pretend on a warning for a second. So let's just say, let's use Starkville as an example, right? And I'm going to draw on a pretend warning here. Let's do a pretend severe thunderstorm warning. I'm going to draw this. This is our pretend severe thunderstorm warning, right? And the idea here is, and this is the way, that this is handled, is that everywhere inside this warning, there's a potential for damaging winds, maybe a tornado, and large hail, right? If you're in this warning, Bradley area, Longview, 8 to 10, you get a call because you're under a place that the National Weather Service, the government, has decided needs to be warned for a severe thunderstorm warning. But let's bring it in here closer to Starkville and start talking about this for a second, because notice how if you were sitting here at Dudy Noble Field, you're outside of that. So if you're at Dudy Noble Field, which is not your home, but it's the home of, obviously the Bulldogs, Diamond Dogs there, if that was your home, you wouldn't get a phone call. But let's be a little more specific here. The intersection of 145 and Montgomery right there, right? The intersection of that's outside the warning. There's no phone call there. But if you're over here just east of that, at that house there, that's business, that house there, you do get a phone call. The idea is if humans, meteorologists, are doing our job right here, and we have, and by we, I mean the National Weather Service has placed the warning in the right spot, then the damage should be confined to the warning area, or the significant damage, thing being warned on, tornado or severe thunderstorm or dangerous flash flooding, it should be in this area here. So the idea is if we're doing our job, then you're getting a call if you're in danger. If you're out here, the danger is less. It's not to mean you won't have some branches get knocked down. You might not have some gusty wind, but if the storm looks like it's going to be producing 60, 70 mile per hour winds or tornado or something like that east, that's when the Weather Service would put out a new warning for that. So one of the things that's weird about Weather Call that you have to get used to is this phone alert that you don't want to get, because that means that now you're in the worst part of whatever that storm is producing. So it is accurate to where when I don't live that far from the TV station, and then on occasion my house would be in the warning and the TV station wouldn't. I would get a phone call based on where my house location was, and vice versa. Sometimes the station wasn't in the warning. No, I got the other flip of that. I don't remember what the first flip I said. Anyway, the point is that it is precise to your exact GPS location in there that you put in when you're signing up. It monitors that and sends you a phone call based on that location there. The reason that's important, and I don't have my phone with me, so I'll hold up my iPad instead, is because if you use our app, and if you have it open and you put on there your location, it will monitor whatever location and send you alerts based on that, which is great, but it's the same alert sound as pretty much everything else. And trust me, I talked to the vendor about that again yesterday. They're trying to fix it where maybe we get my voice on there, or at least some kind of unique sound. That's one of the things that we are strongly working on and hopefully getting closer to. But that is, if you're asking me what's a negative of our app, that's one of the negatives, is it's a similar alert sound. Weather Call solves that problem because a phone call breaks through whatever it is you're doing. Like right now, if I got a phone call, despite the fact my phone's not here, my iPad would still ring here in front of me and let me know that there's a phone call coming through. It disrupts us and lets us know that we're in the danger zone. So that's why Weather Call is something I have for my family, and I recommend you getting for yours as well there. Okay, let's see there. Yeah, and I think we'll probably get large severe thunderstorm warnings with smaller tornado warnings tomorrow is probably the way this will be handled. I think that most of us will get placed under warnings for tomorrow at some point in time there. Okay, I think we've covered most of those questions, and I appreciate that. Is the Weather Call subscription per phone number? I believe Weather Call Next Gen, you should have multiple phone numbers you can put in there. It's one location that's monitored for multiple phone numbers. So that way, it, like in our case, it calls me, it calls our sitter, and it calls my wife. So you have multiple phone calls that it monitors there at well. So anyway, something to keep in mind. So let's give you, someone asked the question, and I think that this is probably the best way in which we can kind of wrap up here. Two things while I'm pulling this up. Number one, again, support the sponsors like Room to Room, that supports our Weather Center, Mama Justice, that sponsors our Doppler radar, and the many, many other sponsors that have stepped up to follow us. Download our app for Roku, Apple TV. I was talking to a woman today. It was the fact that it allows her to keep her devices charged up by pulling us up on the old school TV. You can download it. Just search for Mississippi Live on those different platforms there. But this is our Fuel and Future cast. I kind of led the second block of the show with this. And I think this does as good a job as any of showing kind of how things will play out for tomorrow. So you see, we have kind of this line here. The fuel is going to be eaten up by the line. At 4 p.m., all of the activity of significance is still to the west of us. At 5 p.m., it's still west. By 6 p.m., we're probably starting to see our first warnings, maybe 5 o'clock here, but out from Hernando, West Helena, Clarksdale, Cleveland, and Greenville. By 7 o'clock, we're out here, probably warnings extending close to Grenada and Oxford, and our strongest thunderstorms, again, some rotating, some trying to produce tornadoes out here back to the west. By 8 o'clock, we're looking Greenwood, Grenada, Oxford. Caveat on what you're looking at here, models almost always run behind on a very fast-moving system. So this could be a little bit slow, but this is a generalized idea on the positioning of this. As we head toward 9 p.m., we show up Kosciuszko, back toward around Tupelo and the Boonville area and Corinth. By around 10 p.m., we're now here to Louisville, Columbus, Amory, and Russellville. And as we head toward around 11 o'clock, exiting. So that is your time frame here. And our headlines on this event to kind of give you an idea on the confidence on the event as a whole and what we need to think. Sorry, I had some kind of a glitch for a second. Promise I didn't lock up my... So confidence, again, a brief tornado possible, damaging winds before and after, as well as during the line of thunderstorms, our greatest potential. Some large hail in excess of 1.5 inches, not impossible out of this here. And we're not expecting to have much in the way of flooding rainfall, thankfully. Again, our next live broadcast is going to be coming up this evening at 10 p.m. here. Our meteorologist, Caleb Edelblut, updates here related to this. Caleb, you're going to have to give me a a space bar or a foot pedal there, because I think I'm still reconnecting there behind the scenes on one of those computers. But anyway, 10 o'clock tonight, the latest on the timing. That's the thing we'll probably refine the most. The other thing Caleb's going to be looking at, and if he sees it, I might hop on and help a little bit, is if we start seeing more thunderstorms developing ahead of the line. Those, when they merge into the line, are most likely to produce tornadoes. That's a concern we're watching. Keep it here for the latest. Like, subscribe, download, all the things. And again, appreciate y'all for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Lopon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Lopon has proven himself trustworthy.